Welcome back. More airlines have resumed flights at OR Tambo International Airport today. Airlines had to halt operations following President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement of a national state of disaster 3 months ago. The airline business is facing tough times in many parts of the world due to restrictions on flying, limits on passenger numbers, as well as a lack of travellers overall. All of this, of course, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. FlySafe's Marketing Vice President Kirby Gordon joining us by Skype now to talk about your first day back in the skies. Kirby, has it been a busy one?
It has, Tembekile. Unfortunately, good news from the airports. It seems that everything's been running quite smoothly and that passengers are adjusting to this new process of getting through the airport terminal to actually boarding the aircraft.
And of course, what we're seeing now is not a wholesale return to flying. It's only people who are traveling for business or work-related purposes. How is that being monitored?
That's correct. So it's actually a range of purposes. The main one being that being for business, the legislation actually requires that no one may travel for leisure. So all of the same rules that apply for interprovincial travel still apply when it comes to flying. So you are permitted to fly for things like funerals or to return to school where schools are open, etc. And this is being monitored largely by the Port Health Authority. So they actually man the entrances to the airport terminals, and they're the ones that review all of the necessary paperwork before you're actually allowed entrance to the airport terminal itself.
Safety is a big one. I know, for example, one of the new compulsory measures is that we all wrap our luggage before boarding. What else is being done where FlySafe in particular is concerned to make sure that all passengers are as safe as possible?
Absolutely. I mean, flying under these conditions is a massive concern that we need to look after. So we've got a number of measures and interventions in place. Obviously, I think it goes without saying that wearing masks is absolutely compulsory throughout the entire duration of your flight. But there are also some very strict and specific sanitization methods or measures that we've put in place in terms of disinfecting the aircraft before and between flights. Similarly, there's a no-touch policy. You're not allowed to make contact with any member of staff or anyone within the airport terminals. So customers are expected to scan their own boarding passes and display their IDs without actually handing over any documents to staff, amongst a number of other, minor details that all perpetuate the same things that we understand in terms of preventing the spread of infection.
And the aviation industry as a whole, Kirby, is expected to shed thousands of jobs in the coming weeks and months. What is the forecast where FlySafe is concerned?
Tembekile, we're in a strong position. I mean, we've been quite fortunate in that we managed to enter into the COVID pandemic in a relatively strong cash position, which was very useful. So we've managed to avoid any Section 189 retrenchment processes. But it is still very early days to be able to comment on a lot that's going on. Our business is one with notoriously thin margins. So being able to claw back from a position of not flying is going to take us quite some time. The estimates are between 3 to 4 years to actually get back to where we were beforehand. And bearing in mind that at the moment, we've only got 20% of our available capacity on the market. And to put that into perspective, given other players that aren't participating at the moment, that means that right now there's only about 8% of the number of seats that we're used to having available on the South African domestic market. So we're looking at a very, very slow beginning here.
So you'll obviously need to make cuts to stay afloat. Where will those cuts be made if, as you say, retrenchments aren't on the cards at the moment?
So at this stage, we're okay to maintain from a cash position to take ourselves through. So we're not looking to reduce our fleet or anything at this stage. But that is obviously based on a projection that we do see an upward trajectory from this point forward. Obviously, if the tide does turn and we see a reinstatement of certain more strict conditions, we'll have to reevaluate that plan. But for now, FlySafe is in a good position, and we just hope that we can keep filling those aircraft and put more and more of them up in the air responsibly, but also in order to save our business.
I want to come back to the question about your staff, and limited capacity obviously means you cannot have as many people on a flight manning the various parts, your desks at the various airports. So how many of your employees are you actually using at this moment?
So typically it varies from area to area. Obviously our scales and our economies of scales are slightly different. I think probably the area that is most hard affected would obviously be the crew, who have a very specific sort of one-to-one ratio, obviously, in terms of, operating aircraft. So in that place at the moment, we are seeing between 16 and 20% of the crew being utilized. But obviously in places like, for example, in our technical area, we've got slightly fuller staff capacities at work there because we need to cover all of the skill sets and all the requirements in those places.
Kirby Gordon from Fly FA, great speaking to you.